Us now to break down the meeting on Capitol Hill, the Republican pep rally, as some are calling it, is NewsNation political contributor Mick Mulvaney. He is also the former acting White House chief of staff under former President Trump. Mick, great to have you on the show. The president got a standing ovation during his meeting with lawmakers. House Republicans even saying happy birthday, gave him a cake. This really feels like a redemption song for the former president.
Sure. Well, I think they've recognized now he's at the top of the ticket, and their fortunes are tied to his, especially in the House. President Trump can have differing effects on Senate races. Sometimes he's helpful, sometimes he's not. But generally speaking, he's really, really helpful to those Republican House members. So they are going to tie their wagon to his star and see how they do. That doesn't surprise me at all. For his part, I think Donald Trump figured out one thing, Elizabeth, in his first term in office, which is that it's a lot more fun to be president when your party controls the House and the Senate. And I think he realizes now that if he wins, and of course it's a very tight race, and he's got a chance to win, he'd really like to have a Republican House and a Republican Senate. So that's why you're seeing a lot of the unity today. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. Yeah,
let's see if he opens up the campaign coffers and gives these guys some money in these down ballot races. But anyway, there were no cameras inside the meetings, but several lawmakers report he also did spend some time complaining about Nancy Pelosi, musing about Hannibal Lecter, and ranting about Taylor Swift's endorsement of Joe Biden in 2020. He called the DOJ dirty, no-good bastards. You worked for him, Mick. Decipher that messaging for me, if you can, please.
Yeah, I was also in the House. So first of all, it's not unusual for there not to be any cameras there. That's standard operating procedure. And if that's the only complaining about the Democrats that took place in that meeting, that would be below average. That's one of the things that those things are for. You get together and first of all, you fight amongst yourselves as Republicans, but you also complain about the Democrats. So that's pretty standard stuff. The fact that Trump has decided to raise Hannibal Lecter or Taylor Swift, that's just Trump being Trump. You could expect that whether or not he's in a closed room with a bunch of Republican senators or on stage at a rally. It's one thing about the president. He is what he is all of the time. People used to always ask me, Elizabeth, what's it really like to be with Donald Trump in a closed room? I'm like, what you see on the stage is what you get in the closed rooms, and that's what the Senate and the House saw today as well.
He's also talked a lot about the DOJ today and in interviews and on the campaign trail, talking about going after Democrats if elected. You actually defended that position in an op-ed this week with a headline that read, "What's wrong with a little revenge?" Writing, "Why shouldn't we go after the Democrats?" Why do you think that's a winning message? Why do you think that's what America wants to hear right now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a winning message as much as it is. It's an academic question or an intellectual question. What's the difference between revenge and the equal application of justice? If the Trump Department of Justice decides to go deep into Elizabeth Warren's, I don't know, student loan applications from when she was a kid or when her kids went to college, or if a state attorney general goes into somebody's credit card applications, how is that different than what the Democrat attorney generals and Democrat Department of Justice has done to Trump? So it was more of it was not a campaign piece that I wrote. It was sort of an invitation to a discussion about what's the difference between revenge and just applying the law equally to everybody. Granted, the standard is lower now than it was before Donald Trump was president, but what standard we choose to live by going forward is an interesting conversation, I think.
Okay, Mick, why does the former president keep saying we have inflation right now higher than it's ever been when that's categorically false?
Yeah, I watched that.
I mean, is it somebody on the staff telling him, hey, sir, it's actually 3%? It was,
Yeah. It is. There's also a person on the staff telling Joe Biden, by the way, you didn't have a cousin that was eaten by cannibals, but he continues to tell the story.
Okay, I know, but stick with Trump.
Well, but I don't know why politicians do it. Believe they're not the only two politicians who do that. Does it make the staff pull their hair out? Yes, it does. Does it open them up to charges of lying or exaggerating or using hyperbole? Yes, it does. Does it really move the needle politically? I don't think that it does. The point of the matter is that inflation is going to be a topic, and Donald Trump wants to remind everybody of that.
All right, super quick, because we're running out of time. Apparently, Trump said today, I think my vice president is probably in this room while meeting on Capitol Hill, which that was a loud primal scream from Governor Doug Burgum, who you thought he might have been at the top of the list. Do you think his vice presidential pick will be is going to come from Congress?
No, I don't. I really don't get the feeling that it is, because keep in mind, I think one of the characteristics he's looking for, the qualities he's looking for, is somebody who isn't really interested in running for president right away. And every man and woman in that room wants to be president at some level.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.